This theory from the government that fire brought these 3 buildings down is absolute nonsense, and yet people are clinging to it tightly like a teddy bear. They just can't bring themselves to face the possibility that those towers were blown up. But all the evidence shows it. The seismic data and the video shows that the structure of those towers disintegrated completely in 8 to 10 seconds. The seismic data is proof. You can see it. The entire structure is gone in 8 to 10 seconds. We don't have to know all the details.
We're dealing with thermite. That's very clear.
This is all evidence of explosives. We do know that video that shows the thermite coming out of the building, the molten iron, that is proof that the government is lying. That alone is proof.
We're dealing with thermite. That's very clear.
The thermite, if you look at the thermite, the video, there's a video that shows this molten iron pouring out of the building just seconds before the building came down. Now, we don't know where the thermite came from. Professor Jones has already identified it. He got a sample of some of the rubble, and he's already identified it. It is thermite.
That molten metal, and that it was described as molten steel, although it's molten iron mostly, was found in the basements of both towers and Building 7.
In spite of the fact that they were able to steal away all of the evidence, metal evidence at least, and send it to China, for the first time in history, an accident scene or a disaster scene was actually carted off immediately after. But the powder that was left behind, the pulverized cement, the pulverized TV screens and computers and everything, this could not have happened from a collapse. I mean, we're talking about microscopic pieces of computer. How could that possibly be without explosives?
Well, there were of course, there were the 5 dancing Israelis who turned out to be Mossad operatives who were caught, videotaping and celebrating. On September 11th, I was in New York City, happened to be, and I was, when all this stuff happened, we started driving across Pennsylvania to get home, and I remember listening at about this time of day, midday, on September 11th, 5 years ago, and I remember, I think it was Ted Koppel came on and said that 5 Middle Eastern men had been caught videotaping and celebrating the attacks on the World Trade Center. And they had Arab clothing. They disguised or they dressed themselves as Arabs, for effect. And this all looked to be very much like a planted, element of a false flag terror. It turned out to be. The Forward newspaper, that is a Jewish newspaper, a leading Jewish newspaper in New York City, actually reported a few months later that yes, in fact, these men were Mossad. That's Israeli intelligence. Now you have to ask yourself, these men went back to Israel and eventually did a radio show and a television show in which they told their Israeli viewers and listeners that America has never suffered terrorism like Israel, and we were there to document the event.
It wasn't dust. It was pulverized buildings, pulverized office furnishings, pulverized people.
The fires beneath the rubble were cooking at a temperature higher than the boiling point of metals.
And Larry Silverstein, people have to look at who he is, who his friends are. The guy he's friends with Frank Lowy, Rupert Murdoch, and Benjamin Netanyahu. And because it was Silverstein who had control of the building, it was Silverstein that the news reports are saying is changing the security personnel.
How did I know that, this was an explosion? And I said, well, first of all, the metal, the way that the metal was taken off site told me something was wrong right away. But we can see from the collapse of that building, explosions in the photographs. We can tell that there were people in the